share the screen with you. Okay. Let me introduce the team. أنا هند الكردي, Senior Procurement Officer. مرام كيلاني, Monitoring and Evaluation Manager. يزن الناصر, Financial Transaction Unit Director. هلا أول شيء إحنا رح نبلش بالميتينج هلا. The agenda will be, we will introduce the USAID Business Growth Activity Project and the main request for proposals terms. And how to apply to the request for proposals. We will mention some of the contractual and procurement, technical and financial aspects of the RFP. Then we will open the doors for your questions. Some of the questions will be answered during the meeting, and a few questions will be recorded and shared with the questions and answer sheets in the deadline for questions. The USAID Business Growth Activity is a USAID-funded project implemented by Financial Markets International in Jordan. The duration of the project is 2021 during 2026. And the project or the activity will enable Jordan's small and medium enterprises, SMEs, and startups to improve their productivity and competitiveness, create new jobs and innovations within a range of sectors, and advance Jordan towards a more prosperous, resilient, and inclusive future. The main objective of the project is to assess the SMEs to become more export ready and to identify and capture business opportunities and new markets abroad, assist in mobilizing capital to SMEs and startups, especially new channels of debt, equity, and hybrid products, advance public-private dialogue between the private sector associations, and the government of Jordan to facilitate reviewing and adopting policies and regulations that are conducted to business growth and increase SMEs' competitiveness, encourage SMEs to increase female labor participation and improve employment opportunities for youth and people with disabilities. The main purpose of the request for proposals, the RFP, we as activity, we issued 2 RFPs. We targeted the individuals and firms with minor changes due to the requirements. We are seeking to solicit proposals to enter into a number of indefinite quantity contracts. The indefinite quantity contracts, like IQCs, will bind FMI, USAID Business Growth Activity, with contractors that could supply the service but would not specify the delivery dates or the related quantity specific service acquired. Following the RFP, the task orders are the legally binding instruments to acquire services from the subcontractors. Okay, we will start with the administrative part. The issuance date of the RFP was March 1st, 2023. The due date for the questions, the written questions, March 20th, 12th, sorry. The submission of the questions should be in writing and to be directed to the procurement email, procurement@jordanbga.org. The deadline by 3 p.m. Amman time. The answers will be shared directly via email, and the questions and answers sheet will be uploaded to the same website which we shared the RFP on March 14th. The deadline for receiving your proposals will be March 28th. The proposal submission should include all the requested documents, the technical part, the supporting documents, and the budget part. The deadline will be by 4 p.m. Amman time. The type of the award will be performance-based fixed price, IQC, plus fixed fee with 1 or more contractors. USAID BGA anticipate awarding a fixed price contract with an estimated cost not exceeding 2,050 USD, 250,000 USD, equivalent to 177,000 Jordanian dinar. Revealing the estimated cost ceiling does not mean offerers should strive to meet the maximum amount. Offerers must propose costs they believe are realistic and reasonable for the work. هلا بس شوية توضيح على موضوع السيلينج. السيلينج هلا will not exceed 250,000 دولار أو 177,000 دينار. That does not mean okay. That
Screen.
عم بيعمل شيرنج؟ سوري. اوكي. عم تكمل. اوكي. تمام باينة؟
لا باينة كلها.
باينة الكفر بيج.
ستوب شيرنج. اسمعي من ستوب شيرنج.
تمام. هلا the ceiling of the IQC will not exceed 250,000 دولار أو 177,000 دينار. مش معناته إنه إحنا حنوقع ال IQCs بهذا السيلينج. الفكرة هو رح يكون البادجت قد إيه رح تكون البادجت، قد إيه رح يكون ال proposed prices، وإيش طبيعة التاسكس اللي رح نوقعها مع السب كونتراكتور. هي هتحدد السيلينج تبع السب كونتراكت. but it will not exceed 250,000 دولار أو 177,000 دينار. حابين بس نأكد على شغلة إنه please do not contact any USAID business growth activity employees regarding this RFP. Contacting individual employees shall be cause for disqualification. سواء في حال أسئلة سواء في حال follow up, please contact us via email على procurement email اللي هو procurement@jordanbga.org. هلا الدوكيومنتس اللي مطلوبه انها تتقدم من الاوفررز تكنيكال بروبوزل واللي هو اوريدي listed بالار اف بي ايش الريكوايرمنتس تبعته، الفاينانشال بروبوزلز واللي هي كانت بسيبريت انكس، الادمنستريتيف انكسز اللي هم كانوا اتاتشمنت 3 بالار اف بي فور فيرمز. هلا it's only applicable for firms, it's not applicable for individuals. Copy of the ID registration or ID. هلا if you are إذا كنت عم بتقدم أنت as a firm please لازم تقدم الكوبي of the legal registration، وإذا كنت individual please لازم copy of the ID. Summary of past experience. الأنكس أو الاتاتشمنت already موجود بالRFP. لازم يتعبى ويتوقع من الأوثرايزد signature. اليونيك انتيتي اي دي. هلا اليونيك انتيتي اي دي في له جايد لاينز. هو عباره عن رقم، هذا الرقم لازم يكون طبعا it's applicable only for firms. هلا all US and foreign organizations which receive first tier subcontract or purchase order are required to obtain a unique entity ID prior to signing the agreement. The instructions of getting the unique entity ID will be uploaded with the questions and answers sheet with the recording تبع الbidders conference. Unique entity ID it's applicable only for firms not individuals. هلا before awarding you can provide us with a proof that you already started the registration for getting the unique entity ID. بس عند awarding we will sign لما بنيجي نوقع السب كونتراكت لازم يكون اليونيك انتيتي اي دي اكتف واكتف على السهم. هلا احنا كمشروع USAID Business Growth Activity is exempted from sales tax. Upon awarding, the tax exemption letter will be shared with the awarded subcontractor. Also احنا we will screen the awarded subcontractor. It should be eligible to receive US funds. The authorized geographic code for this procurement is USAID Geocode 937 اللي هم Jordan, United States and the developing countries، بس excluded منهم ال advanced developing countries. بالRFP موجود في list of اللي هم ال developing countries ومين هم ال countries within the geocode 937. هلا the evaluation of the proposals received for this RFP based on trade-off اللي هو best value by scoring the highest score as per the technical evaluation criteria listed here already it was listed in the RFP documents. The proposals received from the firms will be evaluated based on the technical approach, the past performance or references, the capability statement and personnel assigned for this tasks. For the individual, the technical approach will be evaluated, the past performance or references, and the qualification of the individual. Now we will start with the technical part. Yazan will start.
ولا من عندك؟ Okay. No, that's fine.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your interest in working with USAID BGA. To pick up from where my colleague Hind has stopped, I will just give you more feel of the technical aspects. What are we looking for and what are we trying to achieve? As mentioned in the introduction, as mentioned in the introduction, FMI is the implementing partner for the business growth activity working under the USAID business growth activity. The project has different verticals to support SMEs and startups in the Jordanian market. The specific vertical that we are focusing on today and in this RFP is the access to capital. Access to capital, debt or equity for Jordanian startups and SMEs. The definition of Jordanian startups and SMEs, as well as the eligibility criteria, high-level indication on the objectives of the project will come after. But I will focus on the scope itself. We are looking to partner with you, financial advisory firms and individuals with expertise in corporate finance, investment banking, general financial advisory services, to work closely with us under these three main work streams. Sourcing and onboarding eligible SMEs and startups. We are looking to find SMEs and startups who are looking to raise growth capital, expand their operations, and contribute to the growth of the Jordanian economy. We are an impact development project, so how we measure our success and measure our performance is with the after results. The firms that we work with and we facilitate capital to needs to achieve certain milestones in terms of increasing their sales, increasing employment, increasing exports, and so on. We'll get into these details. And as I said, firms seeking growth capital for SMEs within under the private equity kind of structures or for startups under the VC. The journey, as you are all aware, to achieve this result starts from providing the needed transaction advisory services. On case-by-case basis, we need to evaluate the requirements of the business. We need to evaluate the financial performance historically, the business plans reflected reasonably on the projections, coming up with recommended valuation and investment structure that suits the requirements of the SME or the startup. We will be acting as a sell-side advisor in this. So we will be looking after the best interest of the firms. You are aware, especially for the SMEs, not in all cases they know exactly what they want. Sometimes they have great plans, but they need the subject matter experts to reflect this into numbers. So we provide recommendations, what kind of investment or funding structure recommended, what kind of terms, what kind of valuation, all to be reasonable and fair towards the sell side, as well as reasonable to the market and sellable to the market, because the key milestone here is a successful placement and execution of a funding transaction. This is in the RFP, we have detailed a very detailed scope for specifically for the transaction advisory stage. However, we all know that this will vary on case-by-case basis. So on case-by-case, there will be a task order that clearly details the specific scope, milestones, tasks expected from that case. The advisors that we are expecting to work with are not necessarily required to cover the whole cycle. They can be specialized on the placement side, they can be specialized on the advisory side, or they can be both. On the sourcing, this is an exercise that will be owned by us, by BGA team, the onboarding part of it. On the sourcing side, it will be two ways. We can source, we have our channels, and we can source transactions and assign them to specific advisors, or the advisors themselves can source and refer cases for our review and onboarding if we find eligible. This is it for now. Maybe we'll get into more details once we complete this presentation and get into the questions and answers.
This is Maran Kilani. I am the Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Manager. I will walk you through our eligibility criteria and related indicators with the verification documents for you to know, and also to communicate clear guidance to the selected firms in the future. The eligibility criteria that BGA needs to ensure when we approve the selected firms are to be registered, established and registered in Jordan, also to be registered at the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Supply, or any other relevant ministry. SMEs should be registered for more than 3 years, while the startups should be registered up to 3 years. Also to be legal, to be privately, 51% privately owned. The number of employees for the SMEs between 10 and 250, and this is not applicable to the startups. The full-time employee works for 40 hours a week, while the part-timers works less than 40 hours a week. The startups also should have a minimum viable product with an actual sales figure, even if it is less than 1 year registered. This is the eligibility criteria. Also, we need to have and collect different types of documentation to verify the profile of the selected firms, which are the copy of legal entity registration at the ministry, employment verification documents according to BGA's templates, including the social security for the list for the full-timers, while the part-timers, here we will provide the companies with a specific template, and they have to fill it and send it back to us stamped and signed. The audited financial statement for the most recent 3 years, copy of valid vocational license, organizational chart with the employees' names, and the company profile or brochure to brief us about the company work and in general, and its products and markets. And of course, it's worth mentioning that BGA will sign non-disclosure agreement to ensure the confidentiality of shared information if needed and requested. It's good when you select the companies or the firms to consider the inclusion requirement according to USAID, which are the women-owned or led, the youth-owned, youth employment, and also people with disability. Of course, more information will be provided during the implementation regarding the inclusion criteria as well. For the women-led, we have 3 different categories, and it's good to know it's the companies should to be considered as women-led. At least one of the presented here categories needs to be met. At least 51% to be owned by women. The share here, we mean here the share portion. Also to be under control, which means the one of the board members to be a female, or the CEO or the president, the manager to be female. Also, the last one is to be 50% of the leadership positions filled by women. This means that if the leadership position number is 10, 5 out of the 10 should be occupied by females to be considered under this criteria. The indicators that the winner needs to report to BGA are the value of financing facilitated for assisted firms, noting that our target as BGA is $70 million, the total target for this indicator for the whole project life of time of the project. Number of owned firms with increased access to finance assistance. It means here the number of firms who secured the investment while they are owned, the companies owned by women, according to the criteria I presented to you in the last slide. Also, the total number of firms receiving access to finance assistance, whether they secure the investment or not. It's also good to communicate with the firms that the firms need to report to BGA through our online platform, and they need to report to us the value of financing and also at output level and outcome level to know the first-time exporters, and the companies who secured the investment need to report for the indicators here should be under the ones who secured investment and not only signed an agreement with BGA. The first-time exporter, new export markets, geographical spread of export markets, it means who access to new markets. At impact level, we need to track their sales, export, employment, and improvement in management practices. And again, the one who secured the investment needs to report on these measures here. The improvement in the management practices, they need to report on this, whether they secure the investment or not.
Can you allow me, please? Just to clarify further on this, what I have said and what my colleague Maram has said. The project objective is to facilitate access to capital for SMEs and startups. We have the eligibility criteria that we have presented, which is a go or no go. But all the other factors or the indicators that Maram has highlighted will be measured at the individual case by case and the project level. So it's part of a scoring mechanism that is applied on eligible companies, which gives different scores and different priorities to companies, meaning not necessarily all companies that we need to work with should be women-led. There is, on a portfolio level, a certain percentage that we track over the lifetime of the project for women-led businesses. Not every case should reflect all indicators. Not every case should achieve export, sales, employment, all of these. These indicators are measured on a portfolio level. The cases that scores more will be given more interest, more priority, and priority in treatment, but it's not necessary to apply on each and every single indicator on all cases. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, هلا before I move to how to create or prepare the cost proposal, I would like to highlight that as mentioned in the RFP, the technical part is significantly more important than the financial part. The technical and financial will be evaluated relative to each other, but the cost proposals will not be evaluated but will not be scored. The evaluation of the financial offer will deal with cost analysis and cost realism analysis. هلا لما تيجوا انتم تحضروا الفاينانشال proposals, you should propose a completed budget. هلا we can negotiate with the offerers, بس انتم لما تحضروا الفاينانشال proposals please make sure انه ممكن ما يصير في negotiation, ممكن احنا نعتمد اللي هي initially submitted budget. ف please prepare the budget regardless ايش السيلينج اللي احنا حاطينه, into prepare the cost you believe are realistic and reasonable for the technical proposal you already submitted. بالنسبة للبادجت, هلا في very important part بالبادجت, البادجت narrative. يعني لازم كل بادجت تتقدم تكون فيها narrative. الناريتيف صراحة يعني لازم يكون sufficient enough to allow to come for the analysis or review of the financial proposals. كل الcosts اللي should be proposed should be direct. indirect costs غير يعني it's not accepted. الاليمنتس او اللي هو اللاين ايتمز اللي لازم تكون موجوده في البادجت اللي هي اوريدي موجوده في السيبريت اتاتشمنت اللي احنا اوريدي بعثناه مع الار اف بي. في عندنا الكاتيجوريز في الجنرال اوبريتنج اكسبنسز, البيرسونال والاكسبرتس اللي اوريدي بروبوزد بالتكنيكال بروبوزلز بالنيمز. طبعا السي فيز اوريدي للبروبوزد بيرسونال حتكون موجوده. بعدين راح ينحط list of names, اليونت كوست which is اللي هو الديلي ريت او الاورلي ريت للبيرسونال او الاكسبرت. اذا في كمان اي other costs benefits الفرنش كلياته كان موجود بالار اف بي. في الكاتيجوري الثاني اللي هو السيرفيس ريليتد اكسبنسز اللي هي includes transportation, communications, supplies, equipment or any other expenses. كل الاكسبنسز لازم تكون دايركت مبينه, لاين ايتم, كوانتيتيز, يونت برايس, اليونت اوف الاكسبنس والتوتال. وبعد ما تعملوا البادجت لازم ينحط فيه الاسوشيتد بورشن فور ايتش ديليفربل وينحط فيه البادجت ناريتيف. هلا بس الناس او اللي هم الانديفيدوالز اور الفيرمز اللي هم راح ينتقلوا للفاينانشال analysis هم اللي احنا او التكنيكال evaluation committee evaluated their proposals as qualified proposal. هدول راح ينتقلوا للفاينانشال ريفيو او analysis. اذا كان هلا doesn't mean انه اي حدا كان qualified بالتكنيكال evaluation انه احنا we will award to them. احنا بعد التكنيكال evaluation we will conduct the financial review عشان بالاخر نوصل لمرحله الاوردنج. بالنسبه للانديفيدوالز او اللاين ايتمز المطلوبه انه يتسعر الديلي ريت او اني اذر سيرفيس ريليتد اكسبنسز بطريقه واضحه زي الفيرمز. اوكي, هذا بالنسبه للفاينانشال بروبوزلز. بالنسبه للتكنيكال, بالنسبه للادمنستريتيف, هلا زي ما حكينا باول السيشن انه احنا رح نعطيكم المجال for your questions. في questions رح تتجاوب هلا حاليا, وفي questions رح تتجاوب ان شاء الله وحينبعت الانسرز تبعتها مع الكويستشنز اند انسرز شيتس اللي اوريدي رح تنبعت بالايميل will be uploaded على الويب سايت. وبليز كمان اذا في اي question انتم حاسين انه ما تجاوب هلا, احنا we will list the questions بس ارجعوا ابعتوه in writing عشان to make sure انه الانسر يوصلكم.
نبي كفرت موضوع fixed.
يا أحمد Yes.
Stop sharing عشان أشوف. Stop sharing. Very cool.
ما في حدا؟
الفيز والبيز حكينا عنها.
Hello, everyone.
بس أكتي عليهم.
هلو عمر. بليز اللي عنده أي question بس
Raise a
Yes, I
hand.
have one question, please.
Raise your hand.
what?
I have one question here.
Yes, please go ahead.
First, thank you for the presentation and for this opportunity. My question is there any specific criteria for the SME or the opportunity itself in terms of revenues, in terms of assets? You mentioned that the number of employees should be between 10 or 25. So this is in terms of the employees, but is there any criteria for the revenues, the turnover, or the assets of the opportunity of the SME itself?
Shall we answer? We'll understand to have.
Yeah, please answer.
Okay, thank you, Omar, for the question. See, there is no policy-related criteria in terms of minimum turnover, minimum ticket size, minimum assets, or so on. However, this is a demand-driven exercise, and we need to ensure success. So these kind of criteria comes from the market. For example, working in private equity transactions, the private equity funds in Jordan has minimum requirements for the revenue and the turnover. So in our selection process, we need to make sure to onboard and select transactions that are sellable to those funds. So if all the funds have a requirement of minimum ticket size of $1 million, we should definitely not onboard or hire transactions with ticket sizes of 100,000 or 200,000. And there will be, as I said in the introduction, the capital raise that we're looking for, it can be equity and it can be debt. So the criteria is between equity investors and debt providers, banks or non-banking financial institutions are different. So this, to summarize, this will be evaluated on case-by-case basis, but definitely there is a direction to focus on larger ticket sizes or criteria that meet the market appetite and capital providers' appetite on this.
I just would like to highlight that the number of employees criterion, it's only apply for the small and medium. For the startups, we don't look at the number of employees, we look at the number of years of registration.
Thank you.
No, that's fine. I want to add, Maram mentioned throughout the presentation that the project's overall target is $70 million. The project is 5 years. I think 1 year plus few months have passed. So we have 3.5 years. We need to achieve those 70 million. So all of these factors needs to be considered in our selection criteria in terms of ticket size, turnover, all of these things. For indication, there is no specific limits. We're expecting every IQC,
Yes,
IQC to achieve anywhere between 3 to 5 transactions throughout the 12 months engagement that we will have with you. So this is an average, this is an indication, but it's not a rule. It can be less, it can be more. So this is the average that we have figured, and it will help us to achieve the overall project targets. طيب عندك فرح.
فرح, yes, فرح Hisham.
Hi guys, يعطيكم العافية. I do have a question regarding the referral of the SMEs. So basically, if I refer a company to BGA and given إنه أنا مثلا I took I was granted the IQC معاكم. Does this mean إنه if I refer a company I get to work with it, ولا the referral is something different than working with the companies?
Thank you, Farah, for the question. And yes, we need to protect your rights as well. So the companies that you source, you refer, you will be given a priority to be assigned to this transaction, definitely.
يس أكيد، بس طبعا بالآخر بس بحب أضيف شغلة إنه في حال وصلنا لمرحلة الأوردنج وإحنا عدينا التكنيكال والفاينانشال ريفيو وكان الانديفيدوال أو الفيرم كواليفايد.
Yeah, of course,
Yes.
they have to be onboarded and qualified.
يس. أوكي لورا حمود.
يعطيكم العافية. I have a question على IQC. هلا each bidder is يعني you mentioned that you're expecting إنه مثلا for each IQC about 3 to 5 transactions would be done throughout this IQC. So is the bidder bounded to one IQC, multiple IQCs? What is it? How are you expecting the structure for that? يعني
أوكي
اليوم
هلا. Yes.
But just to continue my question a bit. هلا اليوم احنا مثلا let's say for example we're going to facilitate some kind of a debt financing structure for small and medium businesses. هل اليوم مثلا بحكي انه اليوم in one IQC I might be able to, for example, enable debt financing for 20 فرضاً a year. I'm just throwing numbers. What are you? How do you look at this in terms of like how do you bound this into one IQC? Like I'm just kind of trying to understand the structure اللي عم تفكروا فيه. I think you're muted and I can't hear you well. ما بعرف إذا الباقي سامعينكم أو.
سوري هيك تمام؟
تمام هلا.
اوكي هلا كفيرم او انديفيدوال لما نحن بنقيم وبيكون كواليفايد واحنا بنوقع معه الاي كيو سي اللي هو الانديفينيت كوانتيتي كونتراكت. هلا الاي كيو سي هلا اتس نوت كونتراكت فور وان ترانزاكشن. الاي كيو سي بيكون في اوريدي محطوط المعلومات اللي هو اليو اس اي بزنس جروث اكتيفيتي الفيرم او الانديفيدوال سب كونتراكتور يعني بيكون محطوط فيه ايش التاسكس اللي ممكن يشتغل عليها during the period of the IQC. بيكون البرايسز اللي هو الجزء تبع اللي هو الفيكست fixed fees prices او fixed prices بيكون already محدد لانه لازم يكون هذا البرايس fixed for the duration of the IQC. هلا لما نبلش احنا نشتغل مع السب كونتراكتور اللي موقعين معه IQC رح يكون اللي هو ببلش شغل بعد ما نوقع التاسك اوردر مع السب كونتراكتور. هلا التاسك اوردر رح يحدد بالضبط قديش ايش هي السيرفيس، ايش الكوانتيتي، قد ايه رح يكون الاماونت لهذا السيرفيس او ترانزاكشن رح نشتغل عليه، وقديش الديوريشن للتاسك اللي محدده بالتاسك اوردر. هلا الفكره انه التاسك اوردر رح يكون as one transaction. احنا we anticipated انه يكون في عندنا بين 3 ل 5 transactions during فتره اللي هو الاي كيو سي. هلا مش معناته انه ممكن يكون 3 ل 5، ممكن يكون اقل ممكن يكون اكثر، بس تقريبا هذا as estimation. فالاي كيو سي it's not a transaction، هو عباره عن fixed price subcontract بتحدد فيه خلال فتره الاي كيو سي شغلات محدده. لما بنطلع التاسك اوردر هو اللي بيكون فيه السبيسيفيك اماونت كوانتيتي ديوريشن. بليز احكي لي اذا واضح او اذا بتحبي اي clarification.
لا I'd like further clarification to be honest. لأنه اليوم is it fix? Are you looking at this IQC? يعني if you can just explain a little bit about the concept of the IQC itself, how you're looking at it. Is it just زي كأنه a binding document that would against which the transactions or like the services will be priced, and then from that you'll be issuing some kind of task orders, like advisory service that you're expecting from this offerer, and then why would that be limited to 178,000? Like, I'm just trying to understand like the limitation of 178,000 and how is that related to the task order?
يس هلا الفكرة إنه إحنا ال 250,000 دولار أو 177,000 دينار هي هاي اللي حتكون ماكسيموم سيلينج للاي كيو سي، مش كل الاي كيو سيز اللي حنوقعهم رح يكون لهم نفس السيلينج زي ما حكينا. هلا هي بتعتمد على قديش البروبوز بادجت، يعني إلها أكثر من فاكتور تعتمد عليها عشان إحنا نحدد قديش السيلينج، بس it will not exceed 250,000 دولار أو 177,000 دينار. هلا التاسك اوردر لما نبلش إحنا نطلع تاسك اوردرز، هلا احنا بنطلع باكس اماونت، هذا الاكس اماونت رح ينخصم من السيلينج تبع الانديفينيت كوانتيتي كونتراكت. لما نيجي نطلع التاسك اوردر الثاني احنا بنتفرج على الريمينينج سيلينج عشان نقدر نطلع التاسك اوردر الثاني، بس احنا رح يعني رح نضلنا نطلع تاسك اوردرز لحد ما نوصل السيلينج، او يعني لحد ما تخلص الديوريشن اوف ذا الانديفينيت كوانتيتي كونتراكت. بس الفكره انه احنا رح نضلنا نسحب من السيلينج تاسك اوردرز. هلا في فكره بس حيفسرها اكثر يزن، موضوع الفيكست فيز وموضوع اللي هو البرفورمانس فيز.
Okay, just to clarify on what Hind is mentioning, it's IQC per consultant. يعني consultants احنا راح يصير after this exercise, whoever qualifies after this tender, after the technical evaluation, will engage in an IQC agreement with USAID BGA, and there can be multiple consultants with multiple IQCs. And then the implementation as Hind explained. Now on the fees, as mentioned in the RFP, there are two main scopes or two main work streams we're looking for. The transaction advisory work stream, which is will be paid for as a fixed fee that you need to quote. You've seen the breakdown. You are all subject matter experts in the market. You probably all dealt with SMEs, and you know the work and amount of effort required. Based on this experience, we are expecting you to price a fixed price and provide the breakdown of this fixed price in the financial annex. And there is the other work stream, which is the placement, which is a performance-based fee, mostly a percentage of the value of financing that you can successfully raise to the beneficiary SME. Both kinds of fees will be sealed per IQC at $250,000 per IQC per consultant as a maximum. Again, we need to reconfirm this ceiling is not, we don't necessarily need to reach in our pricing or our unit pricing. The ceiling can cover 3 cases, 5 cases, 7 cases, subject to your offers, subject to your proposals, and subject to the timelines as well within the 12 months.
هلا thank you أوضح كتير. بس one last question in this regard. For one offerer, with what you would expect to sign one IQC or multiple IQCs?
Multiple IQCs.
لا, with one subcontractor, only one IQC. Yes, per subcontractor أو individual أو firm, one IQC only.
And the IQC can have multiple task orders.
Yes.
مفهوم. بس يعني أنا اليوم a bidder, you're gonna sign with me one IQC.
Yes.
واحدة performance based, واحدة transaction advisory.
No.
هلا الفكرة الاي كيو سي هي حتحدد السيرفيس اللي حينشغل عليها. It might be بس اللي هو الادفايزري سيرفيس، و it might be اللي هو البليسمنت، وممكن يكونوا الاثنين مع بعض نفس الفكرة. هلا حسب الايفالويشن ببين مين السب كونتراكتورز او مين هم الكواليفايد فيرمز او individuals for each task. فممكن نوقع الاي كيو سي فيها تكون one task او two tasks اللي هم المين tasks.
يعني لورا ال IQC will govern by the relationship that USAID BGA has with each and every consultant under this IQC framework. Subject to your proposal and subject to our technical evaluation, you can يعني Laura might come and say, I'm interested to provide only transaction advisory services, or I'm interested to provide only placement, or I'm capable to provide both. If we pass the technical evaluation on board DORA, sign an IQC, it will cover the services that you have bid for, whether all or part.
I understood. بس اللي معناته اللي عم بفهم من حكيكم معناته الماكسيمم award amount is going to be $250,000 irrespective of the بغض النظر يعني let's forget about the type of service that I'm going to be offering. But for each offerer, the maximum award amount is going to be $250,000. We don't have to hit the ceiling, but that's the maximum that you're going to be awarding any offerer, correct?
Yes.
That's the ceiling.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
أحمد.
دكتور محمود. sorry.
أحمد
عليان.
أحمد علي.
Yes, Ahmed Alayan, please.
Hi, thank you for having me. I hope you're hearing me clear. Do I sound clear?
Yes.
Yeah. I have questions regarding the capital structure. So once we engage with the SMEs or the startups and we start to offer a potential financing. So let's say first let's speak about the debt structuring. Do we assume a competitive rate that BGA comes to decide? Or is it of a particular nature like zero interest and what have us from that particular? And on the other side, if you look at the equity, so does it mean like the PGA will still have to be, for example, employing a board member as of an equity since it has been shared, and whether the shares are going to be preferred stocks, so potentially, or I'd like to be clear on that from the transaction advisory aspect, please.
Okay, thank you, Ahmed. For the first part of your question, the debt side, it's commercial lending by commercial debt providers, not BGA. BGA will not be providing any funding, or USAID will not be providing any funding, debt or equity. We are facilitators, okay? Our role is to monitor the whole process on the sell side, on your advisory side as a consultant, your deliverables, your outreach, and make sure that you can successfully raise capital, debt or equity from the market, from the commercial capital providers according to their terms. Now, specifically within the transaction advisory or structuring stage, naturally, as a consultant looking after the interests of the beneficiary, you will need to recommend the best structure, the best terms that suits their business requirements, suits their expansion plans. For example, if their cash flow analysis highlights that they cannot afford a term loan with 14% interest, you should recommend not to go with a 14% interest and probably explore alternative methods. Same answer applies on your second part of the question on the equity. We are facilitators, we are not the capital providers. So we will not require any board representation, nothing. We are facilitating the advisory part. However, back to the indicators that Maram has mentioned earlier in the presentations, the beneficiaries that successfully secure capital and execute transactions will be required for the coming 3 years, the remaining lifetime of the project, to report and answer BGA on certain questions to confirm the impact. We need to monitor that their sales has increased, their employment has increased, their export has increased. All of these indicators, one or more, we need to confirm this through regular reporting after the transaction closure.
Right, that's quite clear. Thank you so much. And I could still share the same ambiguity with my colleague Laura. So looking at the aspects of the cost breakdown, and in case I want to just go ahead with the advisory services, do we get to mention all of the, for example, the loaded or particularly unloaded, let's say, on terms of rates of the employees that we have?
Can you repeat the question, please? The last part of the question.
Sure. I understood that there is unloaded rates that has to be accumulated within the cost breakdown structure. So
Okay.
لا, it should be unloaded. Experts personnel. Yes, the prices should be unloaded.
and do I have to still bring on the more of a like, let's say the payment slips of particular professionals and consultants within the team?
No, you don't need to attach or to provide these documents.
Right.
If I can jump in, in the financial proposal, you're going to put in the unloaded rates, and it is the line item for the benefits that you provide, so you can put a percentage there. At any point in the financial analysis, if we feel the need to acquire these further documentation, we can ask you for them, and you should be prepared to provide these upon request. But you're not required to provide them with the proposal. We will get in touch if we need these documents.
Right, and that's all for me. And thank you all for having us and providing the clarifying question session. Thanks.
Syrian?
Yes, thank you so much. I just want to confirm that you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I would like to make reference to Schedule 1 or Attachment 1, 6 payment structure, 6.1 transactional advisory, fixed fee. The script here makes reference that a fixed amount will be paid upon the successful completion of this component. Now, my concern or my query relates to what happens if during the transaction advisory exercise, due diligence, being conducted by the service provider, say 5 weeks into the exercise, it is determined that things have come to light that were unclear at the earlier stages of filtering prospective beneficiaries. Then what happens to the fixed fee rate? Because presumably, if you continue the exercise for the 12 weeks or so, knowing all well that whatever came to light that was not clear prior to the commencement of the due diligence, then no funding would be undertaken, versus stopping the work at week number 5 because new facts came to light. What happens then to the costs incurred by the consultant until such time? What happens at that stage?
Thank you, sir. And that's a business risk that we, I think, whether under this contract or in the market, we all know it exists. Our payment will be against deliverables. That's why we have a detailed screening process. We need to make sure that the companies at the selection and the onboarding, there is scoring, screening, whether from our side, from the consultant side, to at least make sure that the company or the beneficiary ticks a lot of boxes and will not reach into this. However, this risk remains. We need to mitigate it somehow in a detailed review.
Clear. Thank you.
Perfect. I think last question.
محمد Sweety.
Hi everyone.
Yeah.
I have questions. I want to throw the RFP for page number 11 and 12. I understand that this page is described the scope of work. My question is, do we have a limit for SMEs that we gonna study and make the due diligence, business valuation, and financial modeling transaction regarding, or there's no limit?
Can you repeat your question, Mohammed? I didn't get it.
Okay. I went through the document for page number 11. It described the scope of work. Okay. My question: do we have a limit for the number of SMEs that we have to study it, or we just a duration of time?
No limit, as I said, we are expecting within the period of 12 months, the market norms, the budget our ceiling we're looking at, we're expecting that every IQC will cover an average of 3 to 5 transactions, but this is for indication only, there is no limit.
محمد هلا the indefinite quantity contract would not specify the delivery date or the quantity. Okay? It will specify only the services and tasks that will be carried out during the period of the contract.
Yeah, and the timelines as well mentioned in the RFP, transaction advisory 12 weeks, and it will be also defined on case by case basis. We understand the nature of this business requires different kind of timelines, different kind of strategy on case by case level. So on the task order stage, a detailed scope for this will be designed for that specific case with the timelines that we will agree both on. I think we have no more questions. No more questions.
Okay, thank you all for your time. We will share the recording. We will upload the recording on the website, and I welcome you to send your questions by the deadline, and the questions and answer sheet will be uploaded to the website as well. Thank you.